Izuku Midoriya stared at the notes on his desk while he rummaged through reports he recently received not too long ago. His fingers tapped rapidly on the wooden surface in succession, his eyes darting across the pages while he compared events and citations. Despite his status, he still preferred the leisure of reading, even if it was primarily from a work-related capacity. His eyes flickered momentarily with an epiphany before he reached for his phone, hesitating briefly until he clicked on speed dial.
Hello?
You greeted with a slight croon. Midoriya could even hear the smile in your voice, causing him to smile along.
Can you spare a minute?
He asked while he spread reports across his desk.
Of course. What's wrong?
Remember that bank heist a while ago?
How could I forget? You almost scared me a little.
You scared me.
Midoriya's smile still brimmed from cheek to cheek despite the sentiment being shared between the both of you. He still could recall the day he had admitted his quirk to you, gaining the courage to even speak about it, knowing only 3, including himself, knew very well of his circumstance.
Anyway, that 5th member that bailed the operation is an exact description of this thief Sarah has been involved with for months.
He continued, pulling out reports of interest across his desk.
Really? How'd you figure it out?
You asked while the creak of your office chair reached Midoriya's ear.
It wasn't long ago. They interrupted Sero's capture of the guy, but the way they operated was awfully similar to what those robbers described. Travels through light.
Hey, I guess you're one step closer to finding them. Are you going to follow this up with Zero?
Most definitely. I'll see if he's free at some point.
Midoriya focused on the words across the page, outlining the significant details to keep in mind. He was sure, absolutely, about his deduction. Nothing else was logical.
I'll see you later tonight.
He continued.
Of course. Don't overwork.
You chirped.
You too. Thanks, cutie.
You exhaled deeply after that phone call, smiling to yourself. Listening to Midoriya think out loud was insightful at times, but open communication was always second nature. At least you felt that way.
I'm heading out. I'll be back in a couple of hours.
You informed Bubble Girl with a tired smile.
Okay. Are you sure you're alright?
She asked with a concerned look in her eye.
Maybe you should take the rest of the day off. Nah, I can't do that.
You reminded her, still with that smile.
Who else is going to finish this week's roundup report? Oh, one afternoon to yourself isn't the end of the world. Go home and relax a bit. It's been a quiet day so far. You can get straight back into it tomorrow morning.
It was no surprise that she was fervent about the matter, relaxing your shoulders while you packed a few reports away.
Thanks, Bubble Girl.
Bubble Girl was right when she said it was a quiet day. There was hardly anything to note while on your walk from the agency. However, you kept alert of your surroundings while clutching onto the strap of your bag tightly. You peeked behind to ensure you weren't being followed, even wondering if anyone at the office noticed you taking reports from your desk. You turned into an alley, away from the public eye before you spotted the flap of a cloak in the distance. The tall figure loitered against the wall, arms crossed while his lazy snake eyes smiled. You noticed how exhausted he looked, rolling his left shoulder every so often. Perhaps his run-in with Sero gave him some trouble a couple of days back.
I knew I could trust you.
He spoke in a low and quiet tone. You pulled out a folder filled with classified reports, feeling a sense of dread, while also eyeing the man suspiciously.
I have your word then?
You won't harm Deku? You asked, still with your fingers clamped on the folder.
Of course not. I never said I would.
A moment passed before you allowed Seek to take the papers from your hands, watching him scan through the words that laid on them.
There's not a lot of information on this perpetrator you're looking for. This is the best that I could collect from the network. Unfortunately, I don't have any privileges to search further.
You explained, watching him closely.
Is that so?
He asked, still scanning the files.
I saw you as more resilient than that. Always setting things right.
He smirked at the thought, glancing an eye towards you in acknowledgement, only to receive a confused stare, one they was very familiar with. Yet he did not pay too much mind to the way you responded, merely skimming over the words on the pages of reports in his hands.
They were at a den in Esaha City as well. Alone. Odd.
He mulled.
Why's that?
You asked, curious now of his nature.
Sweets never went alone. Something's different.
You eyed him while he stood in thought, his snake-like eyes darting around as if he were collecting them in his head. You wished to prod through what he was thinking, but watching his movements only made you realize
You know where they are.
you spoke in an epiphanous tone. You know them,
Thank you, Little Red.
replied Seek, handing back the files to you as neatly as possible without a crease.
We can pretend this never happened.
You reached out for the folder, slipping it back into your bag with your eye on him. He rolled his shoulders a little with a creak, something you swore you thought sounded mechanical inside. Perhaps keeping him occupied longer could help garner intel from the source himself, at least while he wasn't on the move.
What are they to you?
You asked, noticing his nonchalance prevalent in his demeanor.
Little Red.
He tisked playfully.
They mean nothing to you, but they are someone worth my time. Seems that Esaha is the hotspot this time around.
Makes sense, please.
Your frustration took him by surprise, slightly amused to find this emotion in your company.
What's with the name? First it was Poppet, now it's Little Red. You have a tendency to acquaint yourself with others fairly quickly.
Would you prefer I called you Cutie?
You stopped and stared at the man, suspicious of his nature, and yet was met with calm and docile eyes. Something was off about him.
Was that a threat?
No. I'm only trying to be polite.
He excused with a nod.
Many of you made ties, some more questionable than others, but you have always been the first. The first to make contact, the first to gain trust, the first of them all to be graced here.
To and fro, Seek flamboyantly gestured with hands twirling in the air and fingers dancing along with them. He was pantomiming, almost like a magician, you thought, attempting to grab your attention with the display rather than his words.
Little Red, you are the first, and I hope you won't be the last.
He continued, staring with smiling eyes filled with intent.
What do you want?
You asked, confused.
A favor, Little Red. Just a favor.
All he did was smile. It was eerie in the way he moved and how he looked expectant of things. Was he stalling? Was he waiting? For what or for who?
It really is you.
Uttered a voice in the shadows of the alley, the tone familiar but somewhat rough, exhausted, almost grieving. You stared into the dark, your eyes adjusting while the silhouette of a cloak appeared, marred with dirt and torn to shreds. Its yellow caught your eye first, then the hilt of a broken blade, and then his face. Midoriya's face stared back into yours, scarred in places you weren't familiar with, and with tired eyes, worn and weary. His stride, though large, was heavy with every step, hindered by the pieces of soiled and chipped armor plates that were strapped to him.
I thought I lost you, Little Red.
He spoke, reaching out his fingers to your face before you pulled away, confused by the look of such a man before you. The hurt was there in his eyes, filled with regret and burdened by the sight of you in front of him.
It's me, Red.
He urged, longing to search for something in your gaze.
Now remember, they are not exactly your Little Red,
warned Seek, watching the stranger's eyes turn to the man behind you.
You need to return before you lose them forever to the Animus. You,
uttered the stranger, pointing at Seek with sudden scorn.
You put me there in the first place. I did, and I do not regret my decision. Commander Midoriya.
Commander?
You murmured, confused before the man's heavy footfalls caught your ear, immediately halting the stranger from approaching Seek with your hands on his chest. Surprisingly, the man halted where you stood, yet Seek did not back away, still smiling at the man who glared at him angrily with what you thought you heard was a growl from his throat.
Who is this?
You demanded with your eye on Seek.
Just a specter. A ghost,
reassured Seek, which only spurred this stranger with an uncanny likeness to Midoriya step towards him, only halted by your interference in between.
He's just not yours.
A glance was shared between Seek and this commander, something unspoken. You needn't use your quirk to witness that exchange before you watched this commander stand down from his advance, his eyes still on Seek with distrust. The way he moved or gestured down to the smallest, finest details in his mannerisms were undeniably true. This commander was every bit like Midoriya, but with some minor adjustments. Who had ever thought he growled the way he did earlier, you thought? It was every bit like Ground Zero to some degree. This wasn't an illusion or a hallucination. Surely, Seek had not done anything. Or had he?
Kaminari sent you here, I assume,
gestured Seek, bringing the commander's attention solely on the man who brought you here.
He has the ability to take you back when you're ready. What did he say to you before you found yourself here? That you saw this coming,
replied the commander.
That you knew where I played in this grand scheme of things. Yes, it would be like him to tease when the chips had fallen. Look, Commander, Little Red may not be themselves, but this one is. Don't let their appearance fool you. They are different, but they share the same essence, if you will. For whatever you have gone through, I only hope this one can help guide you.
Guidance? For what it was worth, this encounter was doing your head in. This commander's hair, his eyes, even the way he stood, despite the odd outfit that was worn to shreds, screamed Midoriya. After all, you only spoke to your Midoriya not too long ago over the phone, while he sat at his desk uncovering a fugitive. But this man, war-torn and weary, felt the same. Your eyes glanced towards Seek, only spotting that unassuming smile on his face, the same one he held throughout just before this strange encounter.
He has been through much,
he suggested, standing by without any inkling of running off. It was as if he was waiting for a result, patiently waiting to see what may unfold. You turned back to the man, seeing the pain in his eyes behind the anger and the scorn. Seek wasn't lying, you thought. He couldn't be. After all, he never did according to interrogation reports earlier.
Am I a little red to you?
You asked, earning a stern nod from the man. You grabbed hold of the commander's gloved hands, holding them close and recalling the way they felt and the way they were shaped. Exactly like Midoriya's. You stared into your clenched hands, feeling his fingers tighten around yours before the glint of your ring caught your eye. Promised by Midoriya. Engaged and soon to be married. Staring into the commander's eyes brought about your love for the man you were soon to marry, despite it staring into a set belonging to a stranger. Yet the green of his wary eyes were familiar.
If they and I are alike, for whatever has happened, it's not too late.
You reassured, still with no context but driven by your love nonetheless.
It's never too late. You can still make amends, save them, find them, or whatever it is you're trying to do. If they are like me, they will forgive you.
I'm sorry, Little Red.
Spoke the commander, lifting his hand towards your cheek before it hovered, unsure whether to even lay a finger on you. A sudden plume of darkness appeared from behind all three of you. A dark, inky portal that stood silently on its own. You stepped back from it, turning your body into the man's arms while he held you from behind, his grip comforting.
Do not fear, Commander.
Reassured Seek with a smile.
Kaminari is waiting.
Realizing you were in this man's arms, you stepped back from him, keeping a friendly distance away before he reached out and hugged you tightly. It took you off guard, unable to pull away, but unsure how to respond. He felt every bit like Midoriya.
Thank you,
he whispered before he released you, immediately walking into the dark before it dissipated into thin air, like smoke. You watched before distant footsteps caught your ear, spotting Seek's cloak flap in the alley while he walked away.
What was that?
You asked.
My favor, and you've performed marvelously.
He replied with a smile.
Thank you, Little Red. I now owe you one.
And just like that, you were left alone with more questions and less answers. Your cell phone's vibrations caught your attention while you dug for it in your pocket. Finally pulling it out, you spotted a familiar name on the screen, clearing your throat in hopes that it would clear your head before answering the call.
Izuku?
Cutie, everything okay?
Asked Midoriya on the other line.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it be?
Bubble Girl told me you left work early. I just thought to check in.
Oh, right. She said I could take the afternoon, so I've been having a stroll in the city before I make my way home. Where are you now?
I'm heading over to Shinso's. Something happened this morning, and both Kaminari and Sero are heading there too.
Wait, what happened?
I'll explain a little more later. Right now, keep your calls to a minimum until tonight. Okay, cutie?
Okay. Be careful.
You too.
That dial tone echoed in your ear, feeling the pump of blood rush through as well. Did this have to do with Seek? With the culprit in questions about Tartarus? Did Midoriya catch on to what you were doing? Too many questions and very little answers only made you feel queasy in your stomach, fraught with worry. You took a deep breath, attempting to calm yourself from all of these thoughts. Reassurance was difficult to come by, but until you learned more, there was not much you could do. You clutched onto your bag before making your trek back home, feeling a weight on your shoulders, its burden within the confines of your sleeve.